The heavy metal gates of the North Carolina State Prison closed behind Sophia Mason with a hollow sound she had heard thousands of times over the past 7 years. But today, that sound meant freedom. She clutched a worn gym bag containing her few belongings and looked back at the gray walls that had been her home for so long. "Sophia!" came the cry from the second-story window bars. "Good luck, girl!" Sophia raised her head and waved to Rose Turner, her cellmate for the past 3 years. Rose was serving a life sentence for murdering her abusive husband, and Sophia knew she would never see her again. "Thank you for everything, Rose," she shouted back. "Take care of yourself." Rose was the only one who really listened to her stories about how it all happened. The only one who believed that Sophia wasn't guilty of the financial fraud she had been convicted of. The other inmates considered her just an unlucky thief who had been caught stealing money from a nightclub. Sophia turned and slowly walked along the paved path to the bus stop. The morning sun in North Carolina was blinding after years of dim artificial lighting. The air seemed too fresh, too full of smells, exhaust fumes, grass, even dust. It was all new to her after the sterile air of the prison corridors. The bus to Charlotte was due in half an hour. Sophia sat down on a bench and closed her eyes, allowing memories to flood back. 7 years ago, she had been a completely different person. A naive 28-year-old woman who believed unquestioningly in her husband, Randy. They had been married for 5 years, and Sophia worked as an accountant at his nightclub, Midnight Blues. Randy always said he trusted her more than anyone else, that she was the only one who could handle the club's finances. "Sophie, baby," she remembered his velvety voice. "You know I'm no good with math. You have such a good head for numbers. Without you, I'd have gone broke long ago." He knew how to flatter her so well that her heart would skip a beat. Randy was 5 years older, more experienced, more charismatic. When he asked her to sign documents or transfer money from one account to another, Sophia didn't ask any questions. She thought she was helping her husband grow his business. And then that terrible day came. Federal agents raided the club early in the morning while Sophia was sorting through the previous week's paperwork. It turned out that the club's accounts were being used to launder money from drug trafficking, that several shell companies were being used to evade taxes, and that some of the income was being hidden from the government. And all the documents were signed by her. Randy swore that he knew nothing about the illegal operations, that someone had used their club as a front. He told investigators that he trusted his wife completely with the financial matters and that he himself knew nothing about it. At the trial, his lawyer presented Randy as an innocent victim of circumstances and Sophia as the mastermind behind the criminal scheme. "She's my wife," Randy said to the judge, his voice filled with pain. "I can't believe she would do this to me. I guess money was more important than our love." Sophia still remembered his face at that moment, the perfect mask of grief and disappointment. Even she almost believed he was sincere. The sound of an approaching bus snapped her out of her memories. Sophia got up, grabbed her bag, and paid for her ticket. The trip to Charlotte took 2 hours. All that time, she stared out the window at the fields and forests flying by, at the small towns where ordinary people with ordinary problems lived. In Charlotte, she was met by Piper Salinger, the only friend who had not turned her back on her after her arrest. Piper worked as an English literature teacher at a local university and was an intelligent, sensible woman 3 years younger than Sophia. She stood near the bus station with a bouquet of yellow roses and a smile that couldn't hide the worry in her eyes. "Sophia!" Piper hugged her friend so tightly that she could hardly breathe. "God, I missed you so much." "I missed you too, Piper," Sophia said, feeling tears welling up in her eyes. "Thank you for coming." They got into Piper's beat-up Honda and drove through the city. Sophia eagerly scanned the familiar streets. Much had changed in 7 years. New shopping malls had sprung up, several old buildings had been torn down, and a new bridge had been built across the river, but overall, Charlotte remained the same. "How are you?" Piper asked cautiously when they stopped at a red light. "How are you feeling?" "Strange," Sophia replied honestly. "It's like I've entered a parallel universe. Everything is familiar, but at the same time foreign." Piper nodded understandingly. She was the only one who visited Sophia regularly in prison, the only one who wrote letters and sent books, the only one who believed in her innocence. "Sophia," Piper began and paused. searching for the right words. "There's something I need to tell you. About Randy." Sophia tensed. She knew this conversation was inevitable, but she wasn't ready for it. "He got married," Piper continued quietly. 3 years ago. Sophia felt something tighten in her chest. She knew divorce was inevitable after his arrest, but hearing it out loud was painful. "Who?" she asked, though she wasn't sure she wanted to know the answer. Piper took a deep breath. "Scarlett." The world around Sophia seemed to stop. Scarlett, her twin sister, the only person on earth who was closer to her than her own mother. The girl with whom she had shared childhood secrets, toys, dreams of the future. The woman who had sworn to always be there no matter what. "What?" Sophie gasped. "They have 2 children," Piper said quickly, as if she wanted to get it all out at once. "A 4-year-old boy and a 2-year-old girl. They live in the same house where you and Randy used to live." Sophia couldn't breathe. Her husband's betrayal was painful but understandable. He was saving his own skin by setting her up. But Scarlett knew the truth. She knew what Randy was really like. How could she have married him? How could she have had his children? "Sophia, breathe." Piper pulled the car over to the side of the road and turned to her friend. "I know this is a shock. I couldn't believe it myself when I found out." "She knew," Sophia whispered. "Scarlett knew what he did to me." "How could she?" "I don't know," Piper said, putting her hand on her friend's shoulder. "Maybe he lied to her too. Maybe she believed his story." But Sophia knew her sister better than anyone else. Scarlett was a nurse, used to seeing through people. She wasn't a naive girl who could be easily fooled. If she married Randy, she did it knowingly. "Take me to them," Sophia said. "Sophia, number you just got out of prison. You need time to recover, to think." "Take me to them, Piper. Please." Piper looked at her friend's determined face and started the car. The house on Oak Street looked exactly the same as it had 7 years ago. The same white facade, the same blue shutters, the same porch with a swing. Sophia remembered how she and Randy had chosen this house, how they had dreamed of children running around in this yard. Now there really were children's toys in the yard, a tricycle, a sandbox, a swing set. Only the children weren't hers. Sophia slowly got out of the car and walked to the front door. Piper stayed in the car, realizing that this was not a conversation for outsiders. Sophia pressed the doorbell and heard a familiar melody, the same one she had with her. A few seconds later, the door opened, and Sophia saw her own face. Scarlett froze in the doorway. They really were very similar. The same brown eyes, the same high cheekbones, the same full lips. But 7 years in prison had changed Sophia. Her face had become harder, and her eyes had that particular wariness that is characteristic of people who have been imprisoned. Scarlett, on the other hand, looked happy and content. She was wearing a light summer dress. Her hair was neatly styled, and she was wearing a wedding ring, the very same ring that Sophia had once worn. "Sophia," Scarlett breathed. I'm home," Sophia said coldly. "I didn't know you were out. When did that happen?" "This morning." Scarlett glanced nervously into the house. "Maybe we should talk somewhere else. The kids are asleep, and Randy—" "What about Randy?" Sophia took a step closer to her sister. "Is he afraid to see me?" "Mom!" a child's voice rang out from inside the house. "Who's there?" A boy of about 4 appeared on the stairs, with curly dark hair and large brown eyes. He looked very much like Randy as a child. Sophia had seen photos of her husband as a boy. The boy looked at her curiously. "This is Aunt Sophia," Scarlett said quietly. "Go upstairs, Jaden. Mom will be right up." But the boy didn't move, continuing to stare at the unfamiliar aunt who looked so much like his mother. "Who's there, Scarlett?" Randy appeared in the hallway. Scarlett felt her heart quicken. 7 years hadn't changed him much. The same broad shoulders, the same confident gaze, the same hands that had once caressed her face so tenderly. Only gray hair had appeared at his temples and wrinkles around his eyes. When he saw Sophia, he stopped dead in his tracks. "What is she doing here?" His voice was cold, almost hostile. "Randy, please," Scarlett began. "Jaden, go to your room," Randy ordered, keeping his eyes on Sophia. The boy obediently ran upstairs. Sophia entered the house without waiting to be invited. Everything was exactly as she remembered it. The same paintings on the walls, the same sofa in the living room, the same smell of lavender air freshener. Only now there were family photos of Randy, Scarlett, and their children on the mantelpiece. "You've made a nice home for yourselves," Sophia said, looking around the room. "Sophia, I can explain," Scarlett said, approaching her. "It's not what you think." "What do I think, Scarlett?" Sophia turned to her sister. "That you married the man who sent me to prison? That you had children with the man who ruined my life? What do I think?" "You ruined your own life," Randy interjected. "I didn't make you sign those papers." Sophia slowly turned to him. There was no regret in his eyes, not even a hint of guilt, only cold hostility. "No," she said quietly. "But you made me believe I was doing it for us, for our future. The court decided otherwise." Randy shrugged. "Sophia, please." Scarlett put her hand on her sister's shoulder. "I know you're angry. You have a right to be angry, but we can discuss this calmly." Sophia looked at her sister. There was real pain and regret in her eyes. Maybe Scarlett was genuinely upset about what had happened, but that didn't change the facts. "You're wearing my ring," Sophia said. Scarlett mechanically touched her wedding ring. "Sophia, it's my ring, the one he put on my finger 8 years ago." "We were divorced," Randy said. "I had the right—" "Shut up." Sophia didn't raise her voice, but there was so much icy fury in her words that Randy fell silent. "You don't even have the right to breathe in my presence." "This is my house," he said, "and I want you to leave." "Our house," Sophia corrected him. "Half of this house was bought with my money. I paid you compensation in the divorce." "What compensation? $20,000 for half a house worth $200,000? Randy crossed his arms over his chest. "I had to sell the club to cover the legal fees and fines. I gave you everything I could. You gave me crumbs and married my sister." "Sophia, stop," Scarlett interrupted. "We've all suffered from this situation." Randy lost a lot, too. Sophia looked at her sister with disbelief. "He lost? Scarlett, look around you. He lives in the same house. He has a new family, a new life, and I spent 7 years in a cage. But you were guilty," Scarlett said quietly. Those words hit Sophia harder than a physical slap. So Scarlett believed Randy's version, too. Even her own sister thought she was a criminal. "Get out of my house," Randy said, "and don't ever come back. If I see you near my family, I'll call the police." "Your family?" Sophia laughed, but it was a bitter laugh. "Randy, have you forgotten that Scarlett is my sister, my blood?" "She's my wife now," he said, putting his arm around Scarlett's shoulders. "And the mother of my children." Sophia looked at them, at her ex-husband and her twin sister, standing side by side as one. 7 years ago, she had dreamed of having children like that with Randy. Now those children belonged to Scarlett. "Fine," she said, heading for the door. "I'll leave, but this isn't over, Randy." Not even close. She left the house without looking back. Piper was still waiting in the car, watching her friend anxiously. "Well?" she asked when Sophia got in. "Let's get out of here," Sophia said. "Just drive." Piper drove silently to the small 2-story house on Maple Avenue where Dorothy Carter lived. The house was in need of repair. The paint was peeling, the porch steps were sagging, and the drain pipe had come away from the wall. Sophia remembered this house as beautiful and well-kept when she and Scarlett were children. But the years and the limited budget of a social worker had taken their toll. "Do you want me to come in with you?" Piper asked, turning off the engine. "No, thank you. I need to talk to Mom alone." Sophia got out of the car and slowly climbed the familiar steps. Before knocking, she took a deep breath, preparing herself for another painful encounter. Dorothy Carter opened the door quickly, as if she had been expecting the visit. 58 years had left deep wrinkles on her face, and her once thick, dark hair was now streaked with gray. But her eyes, the same brown eyes as her daughter's, still burned with intelligence and strength. "My girl," Dorothy whispered, hugging her daughter tightly. Sophia smelled her mother's familiar perfume, inexpensive but beloved since childhood. These were the first real warm hugs she had received in 7 long years. In prison, physical contact was limited and always monitored, but here, in her mother's arms, Sophia felt truly free for the first time that morning. "Mom." Sophia pressed herself against her mother's shoulder and finally let the tears she had been holding back all day flow freely. Dorothy silently stroked her daughter's hair, letting her cry. She led Sophia into a small living room where everything remained exactly as it had been 7 years ago. The same worn sofa with knitted doilies on the armrests, the same family photos on the TV, the same carpet with a faded pattern. "Sit down, dear," Dorothy said, pointing to the sofa. "I'll make some tea." "No, Mom, just sit with me." Dorothy sat down next to her daughter and took her hands in hers. Her mother's hands had become more wrinkled, her joints swollen from arthritis, but her touch was still gentle and soothing. "How are you, my girl? How did you survive all these years?" "I don't know," Sophia replied honestly. "Every day was a struggle to survive. There are different rules in there. You have to be stronger, tougher. You have to protect yourself at all costs." Dorothy nodded understandingly. Working in social services, she had seen many people who had been through the correctional system. "And now?" she asked. "How do you plan to rebuild your life?" Sophia turned away toward the window. Behind the glass, she could see the small backyard where she and Scarlett used to play house, dream of princes, and plan weddings. "I went to see them, Mom. Randy and Scarlett." Dorothy sighed and squeezed her daughter's hands tighter. "I knew you would go there, and I knew it would hurt." "Why did she do that?" Sophia turned to her mother, tears glistening in her eyes again. "Why did Scarlett marry him? She knew the truth about what happened." Dorothy was silent for a long time, searching for the right words. "Scarlett was always jealous of you," she finally said quietly. "You were 20 minutes older, but you always seemed more mature, more confident. The boys paid more attention to you at school. You did better in college. You were the first to get married, the first to find a good job." "But we were close," Sophia protested. "We were best friends." "On the outside, yes, but inside, Scarlett always felt like she was your shadow, and when you were arrested, she saw an opportunity to finally be the center of someone's life." Sophia felt something painful tighten in her chest. Had all their closeness been a pretense? Had Scarlett been hiding her jealousy and resentment all these years? "She came to see me after you were arrested," Dorothy continued. "She cried and said she didn't understand how you could do such a thing. Randy was devastated at the time. He had lost his business, his reputation, his wife. Scarlett felt sorry for him." "She felt sorry for him," Sophia repeated bitterly. "And out of pity, she gave him 2 children?" "Not out of pity, out of a desire to be needed. Scarlett always wanted to save people. That's why she became a nurse. And Randy was the perfect patient to save." Sophia stood up and paced around the room. On the mantelpiece were childhood photos of her and Scarlett in identical dresses with identical hairstyles, looking equally happy. It was hard to believe that one of these girls would grow up and betray the other. "Do you approve of what she did?" Sophia asked. "No," Dorothy replied firmly. "I told her it was wrong, that you can't build happiness on someone else's misery. But Scarlett wouldn't listen. She said she had a right to her own life." "A right to my life," Sophia corrected her. "Is she wearing your ring?" her mother asked. Sophia nodded. "That's the last straw. She could have married him, had his children, lived in my house. But to wear my ring." Dorothy walked over to her daughter and put her arms around her shoulders. "Sophia, I understand your pain. I understand your anger. But what now? What do you plan to do?" Sophia looked at her mother seriously. "I'll prove that Randy framed me. I'll prove that I was just a pawn in his game." "Honey, that was 7 years ago. All the documents, all the witnesses. Even if you're right, how are you going to prove it?" "I'll find a way." Sophia sat back down on the couch and rested her head on her mother's lap, as she had done as a child when she was hurt or scared. "Mom, I can't just forget and move on. 7 years of my life have been stolen. For 7 years I was an outcast, a criminal, and all this time he lived my life." Dorothy gently stroked her daughter's hair. "Revenge won't bring back the years you lost," she said quietly, "and it won't make you happy." "What will make me happy?" Sophia raised her head. "Pretend that nothing happened? Congratulate them on their wedding anniversary? Build a new life? Find a job, start a new relationship, maybe have children of my own. At 35, with a criminal record for financial crimes? Mom, who's going to hire me as an accountant? Who wants to build a relationship with an ex-convict? Dorothy didn't know what to say. She knew her daughter was right. The road to a normal life after prison was long and difficult. Stay with me, she offered, at least until you find something of your own. Thank you, Mom. But first, I have to finish what I started. They sat hugging each other for another hour, hardly speaking. For the first time in years, Sophia felt like a daughter, not prisoner number 74,812. Dorothy told her about her work, her neighbors, and the little things that made up her life. Ordinary, simple things that Sophia had been deprived of for so long. When it began to get dark outside, Sophia got up. I have to go, Mom. Where? Dorothy looked at her daughter with concern. Sophia, don't do anything stupid. I just want to talk to Randy again. Alone. He said he'd call the police if you showed up near his house. He said a lot of things. Sophia kissed her mother on the cheek. Don't worry, I'm not going to do anything bad. Just talk. Sophia left her mother's house as the sun was setting. The summer evening in North Carolina was warm and muggy, the air smelling of blooming magnolias and cut grass. She walked across town to Oak Street, thinking about her conversation with her mother. So Scarlett had always been jealous of her. So their closeness hadn't been as genuine as it had seemed. Sophia tried to remember signs of this hidden jealousy, but only good memories came to mind. Shared secrets, mutual support, endless conversations until morning. Had it all been a lie? Sophia arrived at the house on Oak Street around 9 in the evening. The lights were on, and Randy's car was in the driveway, the black SUV he had bought after her arrest. Scarlett's car, a white Honda, was gone. Sophia walked around the house to the backyard. The nightlight was on in the children's room on the second floor. The kids were probably already asleep. She saw Randy in the kitchen window. He was standing at the stove, stirring something in a pot. It was a cozy, domestic scene. Sophia walked to the back door and knocked. Randy opened the door and froze when he saw her. Are you out of your mind? He hissed, glancing back at the house. I told you. Where's Scarlett? Sophia interrupted him. At work, night shift at the hospital, but that's none of your business. So the kids are home alone? I'm with them, and I'm not going to stress them out by having you in the house. What do you want? Sophia looked around. The backyard was also familiar in every detail. The same flower beds she had once planted, the same old oak tree where she and Randy had dreamed of putting a swing set. To talk, she said, without witnesses. Randy came out into the yard, closing the door behind him. He was dressed in casual clothes, jeans and a t-shirt, and looked relaxed and content. The 7 years had clearly been good to him. Talk fast, he said, crossing his arms over his chest. I have kids to look after. Your kids, Sophia said, unable to hide the bitterness in her voice. They could have been ours. They could have been if you hadn't turned out to be a criminal. Sophia took a step closer to him. Randy, we're alone. Scarlett's not here. I can't hear the kids. You can at least tell me the truth now. What truth? That you organized the whole money laundering scheme. That you used me as a front. That I signed documents without knowing what they meant. Randy laughed, but it was an unpleasant laugh. Sophia, you're 35 years old and you still believe in fairy tales. All the evidence was presented in court. You signed the documents with your own hand. You transferred the money. You hid the income from the tax authorities. On your instructions. Prove it. Sophia looked him in the eyes. There was not a shred of doubt or guilt in them. Either he was an excellent actor, or he truly believed in his own innocence. Do you remember asking me to sign the documents to set up Blue Knight Enterprises, LLC? She asked. You said it was to expand the club's business. So what? It was your idea to create a subsidiary. My idea? Sophia couldn't believe her ears. Randy, I didn't even know what a subsidiary was. You did. And you knew very well that this company could be used for shady deals. You're rewriting history. Sophia felt anger boiling up inside her. You took advantage of my trust, and now you're accusing me of being too smart. Listen, Randy took a step back. Even if everything was the way you say it is, what difference would that make? You served your time, I lost my business and my reputation. We're even. Even! Sophia almost shouted. You lost your business, but you gained a family. You live in my house, sleep with my sister, raise children who should have been mine. The house isn't yours, Randy said coldly. I paid you compensation in the divorce. And Scarlett? Scarlett made her choice. After you lied to her about me. I didn't lie to anyone. I just told the truth, that you weren't who you said you were. Sophia looked at this man, the man she had once loved more than life itself, whom she had trusted unconditionally, for whom she had been willing to do anything. And she didn't recognize him. Either he had changed dramatically over the years, or she had never really known him. I'll prove you guilty, she said quietly but firmly. I'll find a way to prove that you framed me. Good luck, Randy shrugged. But I'm warning you, if you mess with my family, if you scare my kids or upset Scarlett, I'll do everything I can to get you back behind bars. Are you threatening me? I'm warning you. I have something to protect now, and I'll protect it at any cost. Sophia nodded. I understand, so it's war. If you want to call it war, fine. Just remember you lost last time. Randy turned and walked toward the house. At the door, he turned back. And stay away from my kids, Sophia. They're not responsible for our problems. The door slammed shut, leaving Sophia alone in the yard. She stood there for a few minutes, looking at the lit windows of the house where she had once planned to spend her whole life. Now her sister lived in that house, raising children who would never know they had an aunt who could have been their mother. Sophia slowly walked to the gate. War was war. She had nothing left to lose. Sophia spent the next 3 days at her mother's house, trying to get used to her new life of freedom. Simple things that had once seemed natural now required effort. Choosing from several options for breakfast, being able to take a shower whenever she wanted, the right to go to bed when she wanted. All of this was new after 7 years of strict regime. Dorothy left for work early in the morning and returned in the evening, leaving Sophia alone with her thoughts. Sophia looked through the newspapers for job openings, but she knew that her chances of finding a decent job were slim. Employers were not eager to hire former prisoners, especially those convicted of financial crimes. Piper came by every evening, brought groceries, and tried to cheer her friend up. She talked about university life, her students, and the new books she had read. It was ordinary conversation, but it helped Sophia feel like she was part of the normal world. On Thursday morning, as Sophia sat in the kitchen with a cup of coffee and looked through the job listings, the phone rang. The number was unfamiliar, but Sophia recognized the voice immediately. Hi, Sophia, Randy said. I need to talk to you. Sophia gripped the phone tighter. About what? Not over the phone. Can we meet? After you threatened to call the police if I came near your house? Not near your house, somewhere neutral. This is important, Sophia. She paused, considering the offer. What do you want to talk about? How we can resolve our issues in a civilized manner, without unnecessary drama and mutual accusations. Civilized? Sophia laughed. Randy, you sent me to prison and married my sister. How can this be civilized? Listen, I understand that you're angry. I understand that you feel betrayed. But we're both adults. We can work something out. Work something out? Let's meet and talk about it. Tomorrow afternoon at the cafe on Tryon Street. Remember the place where we used to have breakfast on weekends? Sophia remembered. A small, cozy cafe with checkered tablecloths and homemade pastries. The place where they had their first date and many happy morning meetings. Okay, she agreed. Tomorrow at 2 o'clock. See you then? Randy hung up. Sophia sat with the phone in her hands for a long time, thinking about the call. What made Randy change his tone? 3 days ago, he kicked her out of his house and threatened to call the police, and now he was asking to meet and work things out. Something had changed. The next day, Sophia was at the cafe 10 minutes before the appointed time. The place hadn't changed much. The same checkered tablecloths, the same smell of cinnamon and coffee, the same old photos of Charlotte on the walls. Only the owner had grown older and grayer. Randy showed up at exactly 2 o'clock. He looked a little tense, looking around frequently as if he were afraid someone was following him. He ordered coffee and sat down across from Sophie at their old table by the window. "Thanks for coming," he said. "Tell me why you called." Randy stirred his coffee with a spoon, gathering his thoughts. "I've been thinking a lot about our conversation on Wednesday night, about what you said, about how you set me up, about how you won't rest until you prove I'm guilty," he corrected her. "Sophia, even if you succeed, what will you gain? Let's say you find some evidence and I get arrested. Then what?" "Justice," Sophia replied. "The truth. The truth won't give you back 7 years of your life, and justice. Sophia, do you understand what will happen if I go to prison? Scarlett will be left alone with 2 small children. Jaden is only 4, Ella is 2. They will lose their father." Sophia felt a pang of guilt, but she pushed it away. "That's not my problem. Scarlett made her choice knowing who she was marrying. What do the children have to do with this?" Randy leaned closer. "They're innocent. They're not to blame for what happened between us. And I'm not to blame for spending 7 years in prison for your crimes." Randy leaned back in his chair and was silent for a long time, staring out the window. "All right," he finally said. "Let's say you're right. Let's say I did use you. What would it take for you to let the past be the past?" "An admission of guilt," Sophia replied immediately. "Publicly?" "Yes." "That's not going to happen." Randy shook his head. "I have a family, a reputation. I can't afford that luxury." "Then we have nothing to talk about." Sophia started to get up, but Randy stopped her with a gesture. "Wait, there's another option." "What?" "Money." Sophia slowly sat back down. "What?" "I'll give you money. Enough to start a new life in another city, find a job, rent an apartment, get on your feet." "How much?" $100,000. Sophia stared at him. $100,000 was more than she could earn in several years, even if she found a job. "In exchange for what?" "You leave Charlotte and never show up in our lives again. No trying to meet me or Scarlett, no trying to contact the kids. Complete disappearance. You want to buy my silence." "I want to buy our peace," Randy corrected. "Sophia, think practically. What's better, years of court proceedings with an uncertain outcome or $100,000 in cash right now?" Sophia was silent, digesting the offer. On the one hand, it seemed like a bribe. Randy was offering her money not to seek justice. On the other hand, he was right. She had no guarantee that she could prove anything, and $100,000 could really change her life. "I need to think about it," she said. "Of course, but not too long. The offer is time-limited." "Until when?" "Until Sunday. If you agree, we'll meet and make the deal." Randy finished his coffee and stood up. "Sophia, I know you think I'm a scumbag. Maybe you're right, but I have a family to protect, and I'll do whatever it takes to do that." He put the money for the coffee on the table and left, leaving Sophia alone with her thoughts. That evening, Sophia told Dorothy about Randy Piper's offer. They were sitting in Dorothy's living room, sipping wine that Piper had brought. $100,000, Piper repeated. "That's a lot of money, Sophia." "I know. With that kind of money, you could move to another state, take some retraining courses, start a new career, maybe even start your own business. But that would mean I gave up, that I let him buy my silence." Piper put her glass on the table and turned to her friend. "Sophia, let's look at this rationally. What do you have against Randy? It's your word against his. No documentary evidence, no witnesses. Even if you go to court, what can you prove?" "I don't know, but there must be a way." "Maybe there is, maybe there isn't. You could spend years looking for evidence and end up with nothing. Or you could take the money and really start a new life. But justice—" "Sophia," Piper took her friend's hands, "I understand your desire for justice. I understand that you want Randy to be punished. But think about yourself, about your future. You're 35 years old. You may have another 40 or 50 years ahead of you. What's better, spending them fighting the past or building a future?" Sophia stood up and paced around the room. "What about Scarlett? Will she get off scot-free?" "Scarlett made her choice. You can't be responsible for other people's decisions." "But she's my sister." "She was your sister," Piper corrected her gently. "Sophia, I don't want to hurt you, but the facts are the facts. Scarlett chose Randy. She chose his version of events. Even if you prove he's guilty, do you think she'll come back to you? Do you think your relationship can be repaired? Sophia stopped at the window and looked out at the dark street. So you think I should take the money? I think you should think about what will make you happy in the long run. Revenge may bring satisfaction for a short time, but happiness is not built on revenge, but on new opportunities. Sophia couldn't sleep all night, thinking about Randy's offer, $100,000, the chance to leave Charlotte, where every corner reminded her of the past, a chance to start over somewhere where no one knew about her criminal record. By morning, she had made up her mind. Sophia called Randy on Saturday afternoon. "I'll do it," she said without hesitation. "Great," Randy said, sounding relieved. "When and where should we meet?" "It's your offer. You choose the place." "The old Riverview Park outside of town. Do you know it?" Sophia did. It was an abandoned park 20 minutes outside of Charlotte that had once been a popular recreational area but had closed due to lack of funding. It was the perfect place for a confidential meeting. "I know it. Tomorrow at 7 in the evening, by the old gazebo." "Okay, and Randy, cash." "Of course. See you then, Sophia." Sunday dragged on agonizingly. Sophia tried to read, watch TV, help her mother with the housework, but nothing could distract her from thoughts of the upcoming meeting. This was a turning point in her life. The last time she would see Randy, the last time she would deal with the past. At 6:30, she got into a taxi and asked the driver to take her to Riverview Park. The trip took 25 minutes. Traffic jams on the way out of town delayed them. The park really did look abandoned. The entrance gate was rusted. The asphalt paths were cracked and overgrown with weeds. An old gazebo stood on a small hill in the center of the park, surrounded by tall oak trees. As a child, Sophia sometimes came here with her parents for picnics. Back then, it was a beautiful, well-kept place. Randy was already waiting by the gazebo. A black sports bag stood next to him. When he saw Sophia, he waved. "Right on time," he said when she approached. "Got the money?" "Of course." Randy patted the bag. $100,000 in cash, as agreed. Sophia looked around. The park was deserted, with the nearest houses several kilometers away. It was indeed the perfect place for a confidential transaction. "Before we finish," Sophia said, "I want to hear the truth. At least once." "What truth?" "That you really set me up 7 years ago. That you took advantage of my naivety and trust." Randy looked at her for a long time, then smiled unexpectedly. "You want to hear the truth? Fine. Yes, I set you up. Yes, I knew about all the illegal operations. What's more, I organized them." Sophia felt her heart beat faster. Finally, he had confessed. "You were the perfect scapegoat," Randy continued. "Trusting in love, willing to sign any document without reading it. When it came time for the arrest, I simply shifted all the blame onto you." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because it doesn't matter anymore," Randy shrugged. "In half an hour, you'll be gone from my life forever. And dead men don't tell stories." Sophia didn't immediately understand the meaning of his words. "What?" Instead of answering, Randy unzipped his sports bag. There was no money inside, only a gun, black, heavy, deadly. "Randy, what are you doing?" Sophia backed away. "What I should have done 7 years ago." Randy took the gun out of the bag. "You're too naive, Sophia, and too trusting. Did you really believe I'd give you $100,000? But we had a deal." "We didn't have a deal. I just lured you into a trap, for the second time." Sophia turned to run, but Randy was faster. A shot rang out in the silence of the park, scaring the birds in the trees. Sophia fell to the ground near the gazebo, feeling the life drain out of her along with the blood. "I'm sorry, Sophie," Randy said, standing over her. "But I have a family to protect, and you became a threat to that family." Sophia tried to say something, but only a rasp came out of her throat. Her strength was leaving her with every passing second. "You were always too naive," Randy repeated, putting the gun back in his bag. "Even at the end." He turned and walked toward the park exit, leaving Sophia to die alone under the old oak trees that remembered her childhood laughter and family picnics. The last thing she saw was the evening star appearing in the darkening sky. Randy didn't look back.